Peace and blessings. This is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. As always, in the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans to add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I lived to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. We thank God for the Metu Neter, oracle scriptures and writings that came on the continent of Africa thousands of years before any organized religion. We thank God for Moses in the Torah, Jesus in the Gospel, and Muhammad with the Quran. I greet everyone in words of peace. To my Christian family, praise the Lord. To my Muslim family, assalamu alaikum. To my Hebrew Israelite family, shalom. To my Black conscious family, hotep. And to my people in the streets, what's good with you? It all means peace. So again, this is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. We have a much anticipated interview with our wonderful sister, Dr. Monea, tonight. But before we get into this much anticipated topic entitled Know Thyself, we have my longtime friend, Dominic Chapman. He's going to explain the opening of the Championship Community Center, which I can't wait for this to happen. I know it's going to be successful. So him being the board president, he's going to explain the opening of this community center.
Appreciate it as usual, Brother Sharif. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share some information with the residents of the city of York. Continue to support what you're doing, man. Make sure you continue to do what you're doing out here, bringing people together and spreading this word for us. So again, everybody, my name is Dominic Chapman. I'm the board president for the Salem Square Community Association. This Saturday, December the 22nd, we will be doing a ribbon cutting ceremony for the grand opening of the Championship Community Center. The center is located at 459 West King Street. It's in the west end of the city. It's the former New Hope Charter School. We will be offering athletic programs for the kids. Peter Batros will offer his Shine program. We will have the Yaya Girls. The Young Thinkers of York's robotics team will operate out of the organization. Miss Watkins, the Reading Bug, she will have a library over in the facility. We will have a homeschooling program in the facility for kids. Computer lab, Pedal for Peace will be there, giving away bikes, repairing bikes. So there's a lot of different activities for the young kids soon to come. There will be some adult activities taking place also. But this is a center for the community, the entire community of York City, York County. We want to give you guys a place for the kids to be safe, for the adults to come, serve as mentors and serve as volunteers. So again, December 22nd, that's this Saturday from 12 p.m. until 6 p.m. The ribbon cutting is at 12 noon, but this is an opportunity for York to come take advantage of a facility that sits in the heart of the community. Come out, enjoy yourselves. Come out, take advantage of the different programs that will be offered. Come meet other kids from other parts of the city. Come meet other adults from different parts of the city. Again, we're offering opportunities for different programming, educational services. Championship Community Center, 459 West King Street, grand opening Saturday, December 22nd. Thanks again, Brother Sharif. Always appreciate your time, man.
Right, and you know, I'll be there. We have the our youth group at Vonnie Grimes Gym from 11 to 1. So as soon as we get done there, we're coming right across town to support what you're doing, man. And you know, I'm so proud of you and your board members that's here in the studio. This is it's monumental, man. We're gonna be talking about this for ages to come. We already have something that we can pass along to our youth. That's what it's about, man. You talked about that before. You know, that's something that I need to improve on, and our community need to improve on. Is something to pass along to the next generation. And we're gonna be talking about this for you know, years to come, hopefully our children and our generation to just pick up, you know, where you left off, and the board members, and, you know, just make it something, you know, like you said, for the community. So proud of you. Known you almost all my life, and, you know, here we are again, you know, doing something on a different level. I'm here to support you, man.
Thank you, my brother. You hit it on the head. You cannot have success without a successor. So thank you, Brother Sharif. Again, Saturday, December the 22nd, 459 West King Street, Championship Community Center. Come on out and enjoy yourselves. Thank you again, my brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Y'all welcome to stick around. I know y'all busy, but you know, this is for the community. You know, we're here for you. Slide on over a little bit. All righty. Well, thank you, Dr. Monea, for allowing us to, you know, make the plug. If everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot, and we all work together, you know, for the betterment of our, you know, community. So can you introduce yourself, Dr. Monea? This is called Know Thyself.
Yes, Know Thyself. So my name is Dr. Monea Abdul Majid, and I am the Racial Justice Coordinator at the YWCA. I'm also a parent. I have 3 young kids, 5 months, 3, and 5, and I'm a part of the Championship Center. We're having our homeschool co-op meet there. Wow. So I was, so when we talk about knowing thyself, me and Sister Serena Barnes, we've started this co-op. It's the African Diaspora Homeschool Co-op Village. And what we're talking about is educating our children to know themselves in every aspect of their education. So that means that Black history isn't just something that they learn in February, but we are finding ways to almost easily and naturally infuse that into their everyday education and the way that they learn. And so we came together with this vision. I've had this vision for a while, and just meeting people in the community, someone introduced me to Sister Serena, and our visions were almost identical. And we have been, Dominic has been gracious enough to give us a space, a physical space to house our co-op. And so we're excited. It's literally just 4 moms coming together, committed to educating our children in the way that we see fit, in the way that we, the best way that we know how to empower them. So often when we talk about the education system, we don't always see our children being uplifted with the self-esteem and self-confidence that comes from understanding your history and from whence you've came. And so that's really our goal. Our children have already spent time together, enjoying each other, field trips. We're all about hands-on learning through experiences, and really, you know, challenging the traditional school system in which we have to sit and sit for 6 hours. We're letting our kids learn by doing, learn by experiencing, and definitely giving them the opportunity to know themselves on a deeper level, so that this education not only teaches them reading and writing, but also reflection, resilience, and all those wonderful qualities that our ancestors have passed on to us. So we're excited and we're grateful. Our kids are ready. We're getting our room ready. And so we hope that the community will come out and join us and be a part of this vision, the seeds that we're planting in our youth to really know themselves. So I appreciate the topic tonight. Thank you for having me on board.
Right. If anyone wants to call in and offer support to not only our dear sister, Dr. Monea, but what's going on with the Championship Community Center, we're all family. Yeah. And it's all, I know God's hand is in this, because this is just a quick idea me and Dominic talked about, I believe, last night or the night before, and come to find out you're already connected with the center, with Sister Serena and other board members. So this is right on point. So the call-in number is 717-846-5067. 717-846-5067 if you have any questions or comments or support about everything that's going on. So the topic is, or the title is, Know Thyself. You have an extensive background with Black history, or African or Black, studies. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the seed was probably planted within me at about 3rd grade, when I started studying the speeches and the writings of Dr. King. And still his philosophy informs what I do today, just this idea that love has the power to transform an entire society, that love has the power to transform an enemy into a friend. And so I started studying that back in 3rd grade. I was always intrigued by Black history, this thirst to get to Africa. And so I continued that. I started studying social justice when I was in high school, serving in the community in Washington, D.C. My high school was very strict that we all had to take a social justice course. And there again, I was inspired by Dr. King's work with nonviolence. And so through my social justice work, I just began to see a deeper part of who I was even, in terms of what I give to this world and what ways can I serve. So Dr. King talked about this concept of service. Always the questions was what are you doing for others? And so I get married, and my last name means servant of God, and I that's something that I was like, this is the name that God has for me, because it's always about how can I serve. So I go off to college from DC. Chocolate City. Right. I go to a predominantly white university and trying to figure out what I was going to major in. And of course there was no Black Studies program. There was barely any Black people, to be honest. It was 1%. And so, but the university was very supportive of me, and they had a lot of funds. And so I was one of the first students to study in South Africa. I was choosing my major. I thought I was going to be a politics major. Come to find out, I was a little bit too honest for that field. So I switched to, I wanted to do Black Studies. I couldn't do Black Studies because it wasn't offered. So I chose sociology because I saw that social justice component in this study of people and societies that always piqued my interest. And so I double majored in politics and sociology, but I was also did an independent study in Black feminism. And my study in South Africa, when I was at the university, I studied in South Africa human rights, religion, and globalization. And so this has just been a part of not just my thirst for knowledge, but also just my passion, my desire. It's what fills me up. And so I started, so when I left Washington and Lee University, I came back home to D.C., and I went to Howard, and I pursued my master's in sociology, and I pursued my PhD. So I got my PhD in sociology, and everyone has to have a concentration. And so mine was social inequality due to race, gender, and ethnicity. So there again, I continued my studies in Black history, African-American history. Has just always been a big inspiration to me. I literally think about, what I can do in this lifetime. If my ancestors were enslaved for 400 years and have been able to achieve wonderful things, what can I do to give back in a way that makes them proud? And so it's just always something I felt passionate about. My husband says it's what I always talk about. So I'm happy to find a way. When I've been in York for it'll be 2 years this month. And so just, getting used to the community and, meeting people and really asking God the question of, what can I do to serve? And having these opportunities like literally come to me and smack me in my face and say, hey, you can do this. And so that brings me a lot of joy.
Right. Now, when you were coming up, you had mentioned that you had an interest, and Martin Luther King kind of inspired you. Was there actual structured Black history class, or how did you come across that coming up?
Yes, so in D.C., I went to a school, which actually I just wrote an article to be in their newspaper this coming January, because they mean so much to me. And it was the only African-American Catholic school. Even though I didn't grow up Catholic, I went to the school, and we learned Black history. We literally used to salute to the red, black, and green flag. Wow. Yeah.
That was in D.C.?
That was in D.C.
Okay.
And and I had, at that time, one of my godfather, he would always talk to me about Black history. I had friends. Like, this was just in the very fabric of what we did. So when I went away to college and I start to meet students and they don't have this, embedded in their curriculum, I almost feel sorry for them, because it was just a part of how we learned. And yeah, so
Right.
I was very, very blessed to have that education.
Yeah, that is a blessing, because even going back when I was coming up, especially in the the elementary years, it wasn't even talked about. And like you, I went to Catholic school all the way up through almost until I graduated, and it was only like the last 2 years of high school that I went to public school, which is everyone knows is William Penn or York High here.
Okay.
And then we did have a Black History class. Dr. Holmes, who's the superintendent of York now, he was the Black History teacher. So
Okay.
that's how I got introduced to it, and it changed my life, because I never had it, but I always had that yearning in me, even before then. So that's great that you had that, at such an early age, and then you carried through with it. And again, please, this is a lot of knowledge here. Don't be shy. Call in 717-846-5067 with our wonderful guest, Dr. Monea, Know Thyself. Do you want to kind of explain, what you do now presently,
Sure.
with your job with
Sure.
social justice and different areas of what you do in the community when it comes to that?
Yeah, sure. So I serve as racial justice coordinator at the YWCA here in York. And the YWCA, their mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, strengthening families. And that mission just has my name written all over it. All three of those things are things that I strive for. And so this is the very first time they've had a racial justice coordinator. So I feel honored and grateful to serve in this capacity. And I'm responsible for a lot of the training, education, communication, community engagement. So, for example, one of the biggest projects I've worked on, and I've been in this role for 7 months. So one of the biggest projects I worked on this fall was the Leadership Summit, Dialogues on Race. And so this was when we joined about 90 high school students from all of the school districts in York. We brought them together at York College on campus, which even having that location was education for them. Some of them got a chance to be on the college campus, and that the school was closed during that time, that day. So we had the entire building, and I talked to them about race. Like real hard conversations, starting with what is race? What is racism? We really looked at systemic racism. We looked at interpersonal racism, microaggressions. So the day started with just educating them on this vocabulary when we talk about race and racism. And then we broke them into different groups. So we had one group, they really studied the Black Lives Matter movement. They studied Trayvon, that story. And we were able to infuse the vocabulary that they learned about systemic racism into that session with them. And we really held space for the students. We showed them a clip, had some questions to engage them. They talked about it. And then we also had another group where they focused on the movie Black Panther and how that movie broke stereotypes on about African Americans. Definitely even broke box office numbers too. And so the students really got a chance to see media and the role that plays with systemic racism, and how media can also break some of the stereotypes about African Americans and Africans. We had a group on Hurricane Maria and how Puerto Ricans came here to York. York was one of the places that they came after Hurricane Maria, and just how do we hold space for that and really integrate the Latino and Latina population to York and be inclusive and welcoming. And we also had one on 9/11 and Islamophobia. And I did this one on purpose. I said, I'm talking to high school students. They have no idea what the U.S. was like before 9/11, and how after that, with the prevalence of Islamophobia, and how we're still fighting stereotypes against Muslims in America. And so our students went deep. I mean, we really talked about some heavy hitters. I'm also a yoga teacher, and so I infuse mindfulness in my work. I know that the conversations about race can sometimes be heavy, but like yourself, I'm always about lifting the mind, body, and the spirit. And so when we have these conversations about race, we always start with some type of mindfulness activity, breathing together, call and response, whatever we can do to really ground people in the moment so that we can have fruitful conversations that educate, empower, and maybe even heal. And so the students were on fire. And since that time, I've had more events in the community with the high school students, empowering them. I also do trainings for boards. There are organizations, their entire board, they call me to do racial justice training, to really talk to them about making their organizations more inclusive, and maybe breaking some of the systemic racism when you talk about employment, education. I also do writing, op-eds, community events. Our biggest event is our fundraiser, the Race Against Racism, which happens every April. It'll be April 28th this year, and we're already planning for that, and that's a very big fundraiser where we all get together. And our theme this year is One Race, One Heartbeat, so we're excited about that. So I'm just all over the city.
That's a lot. That event that you talked about, were with the college students. Where was that at again?
Leadership Summit. That was high school students, but we had it on the college campus.
York College.
York College.
Wow.
So it was all the school districts. Each guidance counselor could send 5 students free of charge for them, fed them, gave them T-shirts. They got a toolkit, which included all the information that they learned, vocabulary, how to be an anti-racist ally for some of our white students. So, yeah. And
what was their, it sounds like you gave a lot of information. I wish I could have been there. What was their response to the Islamophobia part about pre 9/11 and especially after 9/11? Because it just seems like we're always backpedaling, trying to explain ourselves, those who are, in the Islamic faith or Islamic sympathizer, so to speak. Seems like we're always backpedaling instead of us just, explaining what it is we believe. We're always, so to speak, backpedaling out of mud, trying to explain, no, we're not this and that. So what was their response when that topic came up?
Right. So they were broken into 4 groups, and I wasn't in all of them, but I can say when we all came back in the larger group, there was a Muslim student who stood up, and she said that, just her being there and seeing that, and she was actually in that group, and it went through some of the myths. So a lot of this for them was pure education. We're talking about, backpedaling and always having to explain, but some people really just don't understand. And so when I'm out there, I'm always coming from a place of uplifting, and I'm coming from a place of love, but I'm also coming from this place of education. And I always talk about this word, the root word is educare, and that means to bring out, right? And so we're trying to bring out the best in everyone. So literally, they did not understand. So that particular group, they went through 5 myths and why those things are not true about Muslims in America. And some of them just didn't know. Right. You know what I'm saying? And these, and see, I get inspired. I work with boards and CEOs, and I love that group. But I also love our students because some of them aren't as tainted. They don't think that, this is the way things are and it will never change. A lot of them have this desire for change. They want to see change. They see growth. They see technology. They see things moving fast. And so I felt like the students they left Leadership Summit empowered. They were on fire. They were sending me emails saying, like, what can we do to serve? Like, can you do this again? How can we continue this work? So I think that that topic, as well as all of them, the students were happy to learn and move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was your observation on the part about the breakdown of the Black Panther movie? What was your feedback? 'Cause my wife often says art imitates life. I saw the movie not when it first came out, but me and my boys, they was actually breaking it down, to me. And is there a lot of subliminal messages in that movie, like art imitates life?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I actually started a Facebook group after that movie, and there was a lot of conversation in that group about all the subliminal messages. And I really, with that session at Leadership Summit, I had to hold space for the students who had not seen the movie. So I actually just showed a clip of them interviewing people in China. And they said, how did you like the movie? And they said, we were happy to see the movie because we were taught that all blacks were lazy or slaves. Wow. And so they said that seeing the movie, this is what the clip said, that seeing the movie really taught them more about blacks and our talent and things like that. So that's the angle that I took with the students, because I was showing them how we can break stereotypes by really, going 100 with some of our dreams, putting it out there so people can see that we're not all lazy, we're not all slaves. So that was the angle that I took with the students. However, Brother Jamil, I don't know if he's watching, Brother JLA, he was my co-host for the Leadership Summit, and he has this dream that we'll do like a Black Panther reunion in February or something, do a Black History Month, and that's when I can get really, really deep into all of the messages in that movie. I was so inspired. I mean, I still listen to that soundtrack almost every day at the gym and stuff, just to get fired up, because I just thoroughly enjoyed that movie in terms of the relationship that Africa had with America, and seeing these powerful women in the movie, and all of the African culture that was infused in the movie, and having it be so astute and so accurate. The writer actually went to South Africa, and all the drums, everything was just carefully crafted. So I agree with you about the statement on art and the power it has to transform.
Right. Brother Will with the Hub.
Yes.
Downtown.
Yes.
Yeah, he said, let me take my other eyes off here. Getting old, I'm not as young as you. Yeah. He said, look up Abe Alfonso McGriff. He's an awesome, he has exceptional works. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Abe Alfonso McGriff. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Okay, yeah, he said please study and contact his works, Abe Alfonso McGriff. I like studying and looking up different things, so thank you for that plug, and I'll definitely look into him. Just going at, we'll go to a different topic, just going a little deeper with the movie Black Panther, and like you said, so many stereotypes, that still, here we are a month away, 2 weeks away from 2019, and we are still, fighting off stereotypes and different things like that, and just fighting to just be even. I saw some statistics, even with that movie, as powerful as it was, they broke down the actors and what they made compared to what other movies made, and they made significantly lower wages per actor with that movie, even though it was a box office hit compared to other movies. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was mind blowing. I mean, some of them only made $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Wow. I don't know if he was aware of that, but the wages for that box office hit was significantly lower than other movies that made less. So, once again, that just kind of stuck out when you said, about, stereotypes and, trying to break them. Why do you think we're almost in 2019? What's driving the lazy? You know what I mean? That you said, one of them said we're lazy. Well, how did this country get built if we're lazy? Ain't, the highways, the byways, the buildings. Right. And no lazy people going to build no whole country like that. And that's why we were brought here. They came and got the best to build this country that we have. The military that they have is because of us. The culture that they have is because of us. The inventions that they stole the patent is because of us. So why do you think in 2019 we have so many stereotypes? Like, what's driving?
So, I would answer that question by talking about systemic racism. And two things. So a lot of what you just shared about, who built America, again, it's a knowledge. Sometimes it's a knowledge thing. People do not know. They do not understand. They like the topic is know thyself. They don't really understand. They think that we're not doing those things. And so, and that's the one thing that, I'm very, very, very aware of when I'm teaching my daughters, and I have a baby son, but I guess I do teach him, but especially with my girls, being intentional of like, if you want to be an astronaut, you need to know the first black female astronaut. You need to know that someone has done it already and that you can do the same thing. So people don't always know. So I think that knowledge, the lack of knowledge is one reason for that. And I think the second is the systemic racism. It was a system designed this way. And so, when I go out and I share and I speak and I teach on racism, and sometimes people can say, well, that's just your experience, right? Like, you're the one who just went to the predominantly white university and you're the one who experienced that. And then when I say things like, well, did you know that if you have a white sounding name, you're 50% more likely to get called back for a job interview if your name sounds white and that's on the resume versus if your name sounds black. Like, that's the statistic. Like, this is systemic racism. This is a system that was developed, that was built to oppress, right? It's a system of power where you have people who have power and people who don't. And African Americans have, historically haven't had the power. And so I think that the work that we're doing, the work that you and I are doing, the work that I'm doing in the community is to really change the systemic racism. It still exists. And then you have people who say that, it doesn't exist. And, but we see it in education. We see it in employment. Just the statistic that you just gave about, these black actors and actresses making less. We see it in housing. We see it in the criminal justice system. So, and these systems have policies that were developed to keep certain people in power and certain people disempowered. And so it was created that way. And so until we can, shift those systems, and that's why, the civil rights movement shifted so we have to keep shifting these systems. So the change has to be top down and bottom up, people like you and I doing the grassroots, and then, the boards I'm talking to, like getting them to change these things and these policies, and its practices, the policies and the practices that support the system of racism, all of that has to be dismantled. All of that. And so I think that, the more we work on changing the systems, and when I say systems, I'm talking about education, employment, housing, criminal justice system, media. That's a big one,
And just the mindset, because I think a lot of the resistance comes in because race is such a touchy topic. And I think a lot of the resistance, at least coming from our own people, is as soon as someone is bold enough, like yourself, to raise these issues that we didn't create. Like, we didn't create these issues. As soon, now I'm not speaking for you, but for me, as soon as someone is bold enough to raise these issues, you're automatically pegged as the bad guy, or you're automatically pegged as the racist. Why are you bringing that up, or why are you speaking on that? I'm like, well, why not? I didn't create the issue. Exactly. I'm just bold enough to speak about it. So it's a mindset, and anyone that studied Willie Lynch, whether they believe that he was an actual individual or not, that was his main purpose in that letter. He said, the chains got to come off. He said, but if we implement these things, which is fear, disunity, on and on and on, we'll have them enslaved easily for the next 300 years. And he wrote that letter in 1711. Here we are in 2019 almost, and it's the same, it's the same thing. So I don't know if that's your experience.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, anybody who's not familiar with that letter, you can Google it. And when you read it, you will see, do this and he will be enslaved forever, that sort of thing. And I think that I agree with you, but I've always been, my background is in sociology. And so I tell everybody that means that I'm a researcher and I ask questions. And so maybe I'm pegged the bad guy, I don't know, but I'm definitely a questioner, and I've always been. And so I'm going to ask questions. Well, why is this way? And even as a small child, I would agitate adults because I had a lot of questions and I wanted to understand why. And so And I have, well, why are you bringing that up? And why has everything got to be about race? So it's actually great that I'm in this capacity and I can actually do something about something that I talk about all the time because, I've had situations in my life and I'm thinking like, this is racism. And people say, Monea, you're always talking about racism. And then sometimes it comes out that that institution or that restaurant or whatever is actually, a racist restaurant. And so, I do bring up a lot, but I'm fine with that because this is who I am and this is my journey, and I think that if we want to see things change, we do have to ask questions and we do have to dig a little bit deeper than just sweeping things under the rug and just expecting them to go away because they won't, and so that really brings me to, why I use the tool of mindfulness in my work, why I use the tools of taking a deep breath before we speak about these things, why I encourage people to, place their left hand on their heart and their right hand on their belly to really feel even how our body responds when we talk about slavery and racism. We talk about the fear, right? And so in yoga philosophy, it says that, the issues are in our tissues. And so that when we stretch and we move our body and we're opening up our physical body, we're opening up our mind and our heart because our body, when we're tense, we're like this, and that's fear. And when we can stretch, we can take a deep breath, we can calm the nervous system, and then we can heal and grow and even have a conversation that's rich and meaningful. And so for me, yoga and other mindfulness techniques, they really ground us in a way. And I think that those healing modalities, whatever the healing modality that people choose, there has to be one for this trauma of slavery and Jim Crow because this is in our body, whether or not we want to admit that. Especially that fear when we talk about the Willie Lynch, the fear that's there.
And even the word racism has to be carefully has to be used in the right context. Let me put it that way, because I think it's used in a paintbrush way too much, especially coming from our side, meaning if someone like my experience, someone to say, oh, what you said was racist or something like that, they don't really understand what I'm saying. I'm like, well, hold on. I and black people don't even have the capability of being racist, so I can tell you don't understand the word. To me, true racism is having the ability to oppress someone economically, socially, and politically. That is true racism. I don't have the capability, we don't have the capability to truly be racist. Like, I can't stop anyone from getting a job or a mortgage or a car loan, but if little Johnny, his dad is the CEO of a company, and he has rage and rancor in his heart towards black people, now he can actually practice racism because they have the resources to stop someone from getting a loan or a mortgage or whatever, socially, politically, economically. That's true racism. I can be prejudiced. That just means that, I may not have a certain feeling towards someone. I can be prejudiced, but racism is something on a totally, different level. Have you ever explained that to people about, the resources or lack of resources that we have as it's connected to that word?
Oh, yes, of course. And, just to back up, when you talk about, you can be prejudiced and you can't be racist. So when I'm out training, I always talk about implicit bias. And how we all have implicit bias, and, I can think certain things on a subconscious level about people. Like, that's where we all are even, we have that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to have implicit bias. It's our way of, like, keeping ourselves safe in a way.
It's natural, really.
Yeah. It's natural. But when that implicit bias translate to racism, when you have the power to stand in the way of someone getting a job, or and some of it is you mentioned that if a person has the rage or anger or whatever and they have that power, that they can be racist. But some people don't have the rage or the anger. They just really have the power, and they're not surrounded with black people. So this is just an example of what I mean. So much of what I hear in York is that, we want to hire more minorities, we want to hire more black people, they're not applying, da 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 da. And my question is, do you have any black friends? You can't be surrounding yourself with black people if you're having this issue. Because, if all you have is white friends and you're surrounding yourself with people who look just like you, when you go to post that job, of course you're not going to have anybody, because you're not talking to you're not friends with people who don't look like you. And so what I'm always going back to is, a lot of this is very personal work. This is having dinner, sitting down with people who don't look like you. This is reading books about black history or another culture, to kind of unravel those implicit biases, those things that you have inside, because, it's the personal that translates into all of this stuff, and I think that sometimes, people have power, but they just don't have that awareness, or they're not willing to go deep inside to really see what's going on within them. Another thing I always hear is a lot of my white friends, they say, well, I'm not racist, and but when I go to have dinner with my friends or with my family, they're racist and they're making jokes, and so. And I'm saying, so what do you do in those situations? Because if you laugh, then, you're with them. But if you're not, and you're willing to speak up and say it's not funny, then you can join to be an anti-racist ally, And so it's a very complex topic. I guess I don't always come from a place of people are always just mean and nasty and have rage against black people. Sometimes that is true. But sometimes I guess I always just want to see the good in people. And I think it's a lack of education, a lack of awareness. And I literally went to college with white people who said they'd never seen a black person before.
Wow.
And so that's ignorance on their part.
Even in this technology age, you think?
Well, I graduated from college in 2004, so it wasn't what it is now. But
I mean, in this, you were saying just in general, it's a lack of awareness. So I'm saying even in this technology age where you can, get on, Facebook and Instagram and all that, you think that's still an excuse for other ethnic groups to have the stereotypes that they have?
No. It's not an excuse, but I did read a statistic that 70% of white people don't have any interactions with black people. That's a high number, but it's true. Even in some of the work I do in the school districts, some of the students, when they get to high school, they've never been around black people. In York, they've been in their rural, town with their friend. Everybody looks like them, and that's no excuse. But I'm trying to find, what is the real problem so we can come up with a real solution. And if the problem is you haven't been exposed, okay, well, let's change that. What can we do to expose you? What can we, with Leadership Summit, when I first opened it up, a lot of the counselors were only sending their white students. And I said, no, that's not what I'm doing. I want all students to come. We got to get some of the black students there too, because some of the white students will say, well, we've never been around black kids. So when they come here, they need to see everybody being represented. Representation matters. And I think that that's one way that we can break the stereotypes. But yeah, I don't think it's an excuse, but I know that from the work that I do, that is a reason. In terms of the lack of exposure with other cultures.
Well, I do mobile therapy, so I go to a lot of different schools working with young students, and some of the schools I've been going to in different areas like Dallas Town, suburban. I was in one particular school, actually two, and they was recognized in Kwanzaa. I was surprised about that.
That's nice.
And they actually asked for my help. I just don't have the time to do it, but I was glad to see that, those schools was at least, recognized it. And then one time I was in a classroom, and it was like fifth graders, and it was social studies, and I think the teacher was pointing out different continents. She was like, what's this continent? And she pointed to Africa, and a white student raised his hand, and he knew I was there even though he wasn't my client. And he said, that's Africa. And he said, that's a beautiful place. And he kind of looked back and gave me eye contact to say, hey, I'm recognizing you, what I mean? Because I had my beads on and my kufi and all that. So, our sister, Tanya Thompson Morgan?
I don't.
Oh, okay. She said internet and media perpetuates the stereotypes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you give any examples to her statement that you've observed or seen?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of when we talk about the movie, Black Panther and just some of the stereotypes that it broke, but when you have TV shows and movies and when all the black people are doing a certain thing or are all the black boys are portrayed as the thug or the drug dealer.
Oh, I get so sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, they see that. And and the thing about it is sometimes, the white students that I have come in contact with, they don't know real black people, but they might know what they see on TV, and that's all they know. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that is out there. I mean, we're constantly, trying to fight those stereotypes. But yeah, the media,
I guess that's why the
media.
Black Panther movie was so powerful because it, at least for that time, it broke, because when I was coming up, I mean, it was one after another. You had Boys in the Hood.
Yep.
You had Menace to Society. I mean, just on and on and on. All these gangster, movies, showing us just shooting and killing each other, drinking and taking drugs. The stereotypes was already there, and then you see this, on the big screen, and then we start showing it to, our youth. So some of this is self-inflicting wounds. Hard to get, a black family to sit down and watch Hidden Colors, but they'll watch Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society and all that other foolishness. So we're doing a lot of this, to ourselves, but it's taught, and learned behavior.
Right. And we're breaking the cycles. My husband and I are very committed to that for our girls and our son, breaking those cycles of, like you said, the self-fulfilling prophecy almost of, but another way that I was thinking about is when I was doing a professional training. I was attending a professional training as a student, I guess you would say, and the presenter was talking about. I think he was a police officer, and he was talking about like these are some of the things you watch out for, and and he had these. He was showing these clips, and he had these like cartoon things, and he's like, "This is a good guy," and when he got to the one that was the bad guy. That was the only Latino in the whole clip, like the whole presentation. This was a professional thing I went to attend as for work. So just imagine, like, even those types of messages. When you're showing a clip on like, here are some of the things that look suspicious, and then you have just the one Latino guy, and then all rest of the good people.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I did a little short Black history lesson with a school here in the city. I actually did 2 of them, and I showed them a clip. What it actually wasn't a clip; it's an ad. This came out back in, I'm gonna say 2016, when I was in North Carolina. They're gonna be mad, but it is what it is. Again, I didn't do this. The Red Cross. Are you familiar with the ad they came out with? The Red Cross came out with an ad, I believe it's 2016. It was a pool safety ad. So they had, it was supposed to be promoting pool safety. Every student that was doing something wrong, it had an arrow. It said, not cool and cool. So the things that you aren't supposed to do at a pool, it said not cool. The things that you were supposed to be doing correct at a pool to promote pool safety, it said cool. Almost every single one that was not cool was a black child. And this was put out there by Red Cross. Some people that I was close with in North Carolina actually said something to the Red Cross, and they put it down. All you have to do is Google racist Red Cross pool safety ad, and it'll come up all over the internet, and it'll literally show you a pool, and it'll show like someone pushing someone off of the edge, which isn't safe at a pool. It was a black person pushing someone diving into the pool correctly. It was a white student. Almost every single one, and someone actually from people that I know in North Carolina approached them, and they took it down and did the normal, we didn't mean it, and all this. And yeah, so that, going back to what our sister Tanya Thompson Morgan said about the internet and media perpetuates stereotypes. So a child will look at that and be like, oh, there they go again, acting up, cutting up. you know, even though it's supposed to be a pool, that could not have been a mistake.
Right.
But like my good brother, Dr. Umar said, me and him are good friends. He said racism is very hard to prove because someone can easily say that wasn't my intention. You know, you can't prove someone's intent. That's true. So someone like, I didn't mean that. And that's exactly what they did every time something comes out in the media that offends, someone and it has some racial undertones. Oh, we didn't mean that.
Right.
Oh, we'll pull it back. That's not what we meant.
Mm-hmm.
So we know
that
better.
they spent a lot of time and money.
Yeah, because it's an ad.
To put that ad out there. But yes, I mean, I agree.
And it goes through a process. They just
Yes.
don't put it out there. They got to go through, whoever their board members are to approve it. So it was a well thought out. But those listening, I always back up my stuff. All you got to do is Google Red Cross pool, racist Red Cross pool safety ad. It was just about 2 years ago, and you'll see just what I said about everything that wasn't not cool. It was a black student. Almost everything that was cool was a white student. So
right, yeah.
Shame on you, Red Cross.
Right. I mean, especially for our youth, representation really does matter.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been, a college professor, and I've had students come up to me and say, well, you're the first black professor I've ever had. Or when I say I have a PhD, well, you're the first person I've known. So just seeing people do certain things, like that's breaking stereotypes. Me coming on this show, it's kind of late for me, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be there because I need to show up and I have to stand up and let people
we're glad
see,
to have you.
to break the stereotypes about, what women do, what African American, all of the stereotypes, doing things like this, having shows like this, where we're going against the grain and we're breaking those stereotypes. So I'm really, really grateful that you're doing this show and being so consistent and that you invited me to join you.
Well, I can already see if you're available and willing, that we're going to need to do a part 2. Our producer Alicia. We only got 9 minutes left.
Oh my God!
We barely scratch. That's what I'm saying.
The fastest hour ever.
Right. That's how it always is.
Hour of power, though, right?
Yeah, the hour of power. We definitely want you to come back because we barely really scratched the surface. Yeah. But the surface that we did scratch, I believe, it's very impactful. We got someone calling in. Okay. Hour of power.
Hey, so this is your wife, Takia. Hi, Dr. Monea. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Did you say this is my baby's mama?
Don't.
Lady Hamid.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, because he is such a good truth. So I do have a question for you, Dr. Monea.
Sure.
How does teaching yoga and practicing yoga and being Islamic help you know yourself? Because, some people will say it's counterproductive or it goes against what Christianity and Islam stands for. So how do you incorporate that, or how do you teach that you're still Islamic or whatever your religious belief is, and that you're just practicing yoga as a form of exercise and knowing who you are and standing your ground in who you are?
Wow, well, thank you for that question, because I get that all the time. Some people have the myth that that yoga is a religion, that it goes against religion. But so the word yoga means union. It means to unify the mind, the body, and the spirit. And it also means that we are one as a people. And so yoga, the word in itself, unifies all of us to a certain degree. And so I really don't look at yoga as just being the physical poses. I look at it as unifying my mind, body, and spirit so that I can have that connection. Because I know that if anything is happening in my physical body, whether it be an ache, a pain, tension, that I'm also experiencing that on an emotional and a spiritual level. It's also a time for me to quiet my mind and get still. And there's a lot of healing that comes from yoga, especially just the value of being still and taking a very deep breath, calms the nervous system. And so I always just tell everybody that comes to my classes, try it out. It's for all religions. It's for all people, because the word in itself means the union of the mind, body, and spirit. And it means that there is no separation between us. There is no separation between different religions, different cultures. We are one. we breathe together, we move together in a yoga class. And so I just recently, I was talking to your husband about the event I did called Yoga for Justice, where we invited the community. It was a free yoga class, and we really just talked. Oh, thank you, 5 minutes. And the goal was just to bring everybody together so that we can all share a space, because so much of this work that I'm doing in racial and social justice is getting people to understand that we're not that different, that even the races, you know, that 99.9% of our DNA is the same. Right. And so when we can get people to connect on that level, to forget about this religion, this race and that race, and like we're all one race, we're all one people, then we can really have an impact on our community and our society. So that's my angle for yoga. I could talk again the whole hour about that, but I thank you for asking that question, because I get it all the time, that this myth that yoga is a religion or tries to replace any person's spiritual belief, when from my experience and the experience of others is that it really enhances it, because you're able to get deep on a deeper level. So thank you for asking that.
You're most welcome. Thank you for clarifying, because what I got out of that is yoga essentially brings everything into alignment.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my question. I'll let you guys wrap up the show. I hope to meet you soon.
Thank you. Same.
All right. Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left. You think in 2019 we have a theme for every month, and Alicia's putting that together for us. We're still working on it. You think after the show in the near future you can get with her about how we can plug you in? Because like I said, we barely scratched the surface, with this talk. You think we can fit you in 2019?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
I'd be honored to come back.
Yes. I mean, this has been very empowering, especially coming from a sister. We need to hear from y'all more. This isn't no male, dominated, topic about Black history. Most of the time you hear it, from a brother or something like that. But just on that alone, glad to hear from you. Miss Nicole Gaines gave you a shout out. You work with her, right?
Yes. Hello, Miss Nicole. I think she came to Yoga for Justice. So
when do you do these yoga sessions and where?
That was at the YW, and that was just a one-time thing. We opened it up, and it was packed.
So you don't have an ongoing yoga session that you do?
I do. I teach yoga every Friday. Friday mornings, I'm at Gold's Gym, and Friday evenings, I'm at Twisted Roots Yoga, and that's on Pauline Drive, and that's where I teach.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
My job is out that way.
Yeah.
So
Join
every
me.
Friday.
Every Friday, I'm teaching yoga.
Now, can men do yoga?
Of course, yes.
I asked. Oh, here we go.
Yes, Brother Sharif.
So wait a minute.
Yes.
So how's that work? So the men.
Oh yeah, I've even.
No,
done
I gotta do it,
privates
Alicia. You mean they be in there
No.
like
No, it's not like that at all. No.
Oh, okay.
It's calming, meditative.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I've had wrestling teams come in and do yoga before a match.
Oh, okay.
Football teams. My husband, he's a lifter. He does yoga to elongate his muscles so they don't get tight.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I also teach hot yoga, so a lot of men like that. They get to sweat, detoxify the body. Yeah, it's for everybody.
So every Friday,
I'm teaching.
where's Gold's Gym?
Gold's Gym is Queensgate. They just opened it over there by
Queensgate Shopping Center.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
By
teach
the driving place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my job is over
there.
there.
Yeah, I teach there Friday mornings, and then Friday evenings I'm at Twisted Roots.
Okay.
Yeah, which
All
name
right.
they changed the name, and I loved it because it reminds me of our history with Twisted Roots. So,
all righty. Well, we got you. We're gonna get you scheduled for 2019.
Thank you.
This is Brother Sharif with the Hour Power. Go to Hour Power Sharif Hamid on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, all you gotta do is go to Hour Power Sharif Hamid, subscribe and share, so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. Thank you for tuning in.